Well, hello there, people. I'm going to talk or explain to you, all of you out there, and you are going to be so angry, and I have to say this, I have to come clean, I'm making a lot of clickbaity videos lately. Why? It's so easy to make Linux users angry, and it's to show people that if you don't make clickbaity videos on YouTube, nobody's clicking on your videos and watching it. Also, it's not clickbait because the subject or the title and the thumbnails is about what I'm talking about. Clickbait is if you're like 10 best way of, I don't know, running a mile, and then you're showcasing how to bake a fucking pizza, something like that. That's clickbait. This video, however, is two people. I don't know if it's the same person, but this has been said 2 times on the video that Linux is not a desktop OS. And by the way, I've been using Linux almost longer than most of you have been alive, okay? I used Linux when you actually had to learn Linux. This is what we're going into now. Some ask me, like, what is Arch for? And also it's like Linux is more of an enthusiast instead of normies. Most Linux users are normies, okay? It takes no more knowledge about your system, computing, or anything else to install and run Linux today. I would agree with you 20 years ago, maybe even 15 or 16 years ago. If you are using Linux today, even if you're using Arch and Linux from scratch and all of that, it's so easy to get started with. It requires one simple thing I know we're living in 2024, so it's a big ask, but to run Linux today, all it requires is the ability for you to read. I know it's mind-boggling. You need to be able to read and follow instructions. If you can do that, my monkey friend, you can install and run successfully any Linux distribution on Earth, because they are really well documented. There's a lot of it out there, not like it was in the 90s and in the early 2000s. You had maybe 50% of the documentation, and you had to figure the rest of the shit out. Heck, if you're going back to the 90s, a lot of people even have access to the internet, so they have to figure it out by themselves anyway. Let me go in and really easy to showcase how big of a normie you are. A really good example here. I used Linux before there was auto mounting. Do you know what FSTab is, or FSTab is, file system tab? Do you understand this shit here? This is like the bare minimum. You know, like, I can get that you don't understand this because you really don't need it, and it will still not make you a normie if you don't understand this, but this is the bare minimum to have just an idea about how Linux file system is being mounted. If you don't even have the concept or the idea or the understanding that there is 2 files that handle your file systems, FSTab, MSTab or MSTab, I can't remember the name of it right now. Those are the 2 main ones. There's probably something else depending on what's if they're not using systemd, if they're using something else, or if some distributions do their own shit. It's Linux, it's all over the place. But back in the day, if I wanted to, mount any fucking hard drive, I had to go in. I had to first probe the system to figure out what hard drive was attached to the system to get the drive where it was mapped to. So it could be SDA1, blah, 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 blah. Then what file system it was, how it should be mounted, where it should be mounted, the permissions, and etc, etc, etc. The file system of it. That was how you mounted it. Even USB devices was how you mounted them, okay? This is from good old Red Hat, an introduction into etc FSTab file, or FSTab, I keep messing that name up. But I will forgive you that you can still not be a normie and not know about this. Let's go a little bit further here. Do you even know how to... This is like entry-level fucking programming, which most people don't understand anything about. Do you know how to build an Electron app? Like, do you know HTML, CSS, and JavaScript? This is like any developers. This is the first thing they learn. You may think that people learn to do hello world first. No, most people start out in the front end because it's so fucking easy. So I will say that even if you know HTML and CSS and JavaScript, you're kind of still a noob, okay? But can you make a self-contained app? And you'll be like, oh, why do I need that? Discord, Visual Studio Code, Stack Overflow. A lot of programs are running as Electron apps. I think they actually have a lot of them down here. OnePass, Notion, Obsidian, Skype, Twitch, Trello, Teams. Do you even know what the most of these is? Because they are actually for professionals. MongoDB Compass. If you don't know what this is, or have any idea what I just talked about, you are a noob. I'm sorry to say it. Let's go even further, because in my opinion, if you want to be like a hardcore fucking amazing to the fucking, I'm a biggest fucking cojones in the Linux world. I have the biggest balls, titties, vaginas, whatever it is. What are we looking at right now? Well, or you can't see it, but this is actually how to handle Bluetooth in the Linux kernel. That's being not a normie. You have to remember, just because Windows users don't do something, don't make you a professional or that you are not a normie, because how do you determine someone being better than the average? Not because a normie is just an average user. It's just a condescending internet term for people that think they're smarter than everyone else to say that they're smarter than everyone else. So if you're using Linux, for you not to be a normie, aka an average Linux user, you have to use Linux and understand things about Linux the average Linux user don't understand and or do. It's that simple. So if you can install Arch, congratulations, everyone can install Arch. If you can install Gentoo, congratulations, you have more patience to look at a compiling screen than everyone else. If you can install Linux from scratch, congratulations, you understand how to read technical English or technical manuals. How many of you that regard yourself as non-normies have compiled the Linux kernel? Just download it and compiling it, no configuration. How many of you have downloaded it and configured it, taking away support and modules that you don't need to optimize it for your own hardware? That's just the simplest of things you can do to do something that most average Linux users don't do. You cannot say that, oh, Windows users are normies because they don't use Linux. No, you're not in the Windows community. You're not in the Windows world. It would be like me comparing and saying that all Americans are stupid because they can't speak Danish. We are in two different worlds. For you to see if you are average, you have to compare yourself to people around you and your peers. Like if you want to know if you're an average coder, you don't compare yourself to fucking knitter or a baker or a porn actor. You compare yourself to other coders. And I'm so fed up with this like fakeness in Linux that just the fact that you can download an ISO, put it on a USB device and install it, you are now this uber fucking intelligent human. I've been dealing with Linux people for close to 30 years. Most of them have a below fucking IQ, if you ask me. And how do I know that? Well, I've been tested for over 30 years by fucking professionals because of my autism. So I actually know where I am at. But most Linux users I talk to are more stupid than I am, which is a really fucking dangerous thing. And I see that in the videos I make because and this is something that I get into problem with at work, I expect people to have like a little bit above average fucking understanding of what they're dealing with. So I talk to people like that. You know who is the most angry with me on YouTube when I talk Linux? Normies. When I talk to developers, IT experts, people that have been working in IT or are working in IT, I never have had an issue with them. We may disagree on a few things, but they kind of understand the message that I'm trying to send, because my videos are for non-normies most of the time. So if you don't understand something I'm talking about, or you think that I'm full of bullshit, maybe it's because you don't understand what I'm talking about, or you don't grasp the subject that well. Because I'm talking to people that understand this, and not people that only understand this. I do sometimes, go into these kind of areas here where I talk to the normies and stuff like that. There are a few people I've met, like DJ Ware, he's not a normie. DistroTube is a normie. Chris Titus Tech is a normie. They're just dabbling a little bit in what makes, what the average person don't do. But they are not really an advanced or intermediate or enthusiast user. They are a normie because what they do, a lot of other Linux users are doing. DJ Ware that like goes in and security check distributions, take them apart from a coding level, building plug kind of level. None other people do that. Level 1 tech or, Wendell, he's not a normie either. Just became a teenager, by the way. He's going out and supporting Linux and open source and installing it in corporate worlds and stuff like that. And if you look at all of these non-normies users and YouTubers, they will probably agree more with me than disagree. Of course, we can all agree on everything, but I just find it highly sus to use internet terms that people that think that they are not a normie because they can install Arch Linux or run Gentoo or run whatever the fuck it is. The fact is that most Linux users that's been using Linux for over 5 years have installed Arch Linux at some point in their life. It's not that fucking hard. It's really not that hard. Try and run Slackware from 1999 without a fucking package manager, and you had to compile everything from source yourself. At least Gentoo had a fucking package manager. It was just compiling, and you had to understand compiling flags. That was what's holding it back. I can find find people that will run around you right now with their knowledge about Linux that has not even used Linux for 6 months. That is the Linux knowledge of most fucking Linux users. Most Linux users don't even know what Electron is. They can't even code. They can probably code Hello World in Python. I can teach my grandma to do that in 5 seconds. But they don't understand that a lot of things are done in Python. Heck, even apt-get are using Python in their fucking programming language or in their tool. Just like C++ and maybe there are some mono/C# out there, but C++ and C is being used quite a lot. And you also have to think about this. They just recently trying to update the Linux kernel to a more modern C standard. So even if you learn C today with the new C standard, most of the code for the Linux kernel is written from a C standard from like the 80s or something like that. So you probably don't even fucking understand that without understanding how that standard works. Most of you don't even know what a case and if loop is, an if else loop is, or while loop. You've heard it before, but you don't really know what it means. So step down on your fucking high horse, okay? Just because you're running an alternative operating system don't make you smarter than anyone else. If you go on to universities where people are teaching theoretic physics and what the fuck have you not, that uncategorically are fucking intelligent people, do they all run Linux? No, they run Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. Some may even run FreeBSD. The capabilities you have to run an operating system in today's world has almost nothing to do with your understanding of hardware and or software. Let's go into this again. So we also hear a lot of people say that Linux teaches you about the hardware. No, Linux teaches you how to run a command that tells you what hardware you have installed. If you want to understand hardware, you have to go into something. Again, I'm blowing your mind here. It's called electrical engineering. Okay? Do you understand this shit up here? This is like industrial PLC controllers and what have you not, and switches and not condensers. I can't remember what they're called. These are basically just junctions, but this is a switch, and you have controllers to control industrial machines. That's like the basics of electrical engineering. Then you go into something here like Arduinos. I actually have one right here. Do you understand what this is doing? Can you build this? You know what this is? It's a weather station. You need to understand how to take temperature sensors and humidity sensors and make them talk to a controller PCB and then code for that on an embedded level. That's understanding your hardware. If we're going to talk a little bit about computing hardware, what are those chips, transistors, rectifiers? What are they doing? That is understanding your hardware. Figuring out that you're running a RTX 4090 is not understanding your hardware. I can look at my fucking computer and see exactly what hardware I'm running. I don't need Linux to probe that for me. It's just because you find it amazing and great to do that on the Arch Linux. Just type in a command and it's like, probing the firmware, and it's giving you back like basically a host name just for the firmware and saying, yes, this is my ID. You're basically like a bouncer. You're asking someone for their ID. You have no fucking idea what these things are doing. You can't even spot like a fuse. You probably can't even spot a controller on this PCB. That is understanding your hardware. That is being not a normie. What I'm basically saying here is that yes, most Linux users are as stupid as any other fucking OS user in the world. They are just falsely being told by other Linux users that because they are using our precious little open source FOSS blah blah thing, that they now are on a fucking higher level, emotionally, intelligently, rightfully, societally, whatever you will put in there. It's all bullshit. You don't learn about your hardware running Linux. And it's not even forcing you to do it. It's not making it easy for you to do it. You're not getting a head start as a developer by running Linux. It's not forcing you to learn to develop or learning development practices. You can do it as fast with the same fucking tenacity and force on any OS, because all of these things I just talked about right now has nothing to do with the OS about how to not become a normie, but has to do with you. You are going to use the system in new ways, in ways that's never been used before, and or are going to help fix problems or limitations, etc, etc, etc. That is what's making you not a normie. Just talking about how to better Linux user interfaces and talking to designers and helping them out is the first step to not be a normie, because you now have to learn about front-end design, front-end development, user expectation, usability. You also have to learn about accessibility. usability, a lot of the choices that are being made in software, how they look and feel, is because maybe someone is using it that is a little bit, don't see that well, hear that well, feel that well, etc., etc., etc. Or their fine motoring skill is not that great. When you start to understand that, you can start to not say that you are normie. When you start to find fuses and rectifiers and controllers and gates, logic gates and what have you not on this here, maybe you're not a normie anymore. When you start to understand the concepts of this here, maybe you're not a normie anymore. I will throw something out to you right now. I will not regard anyone that has used Linux less than 10 to 15 years other than a normie, unless they are working in the IT industry. Because it takes about 5 to 10 years before you even grasp 5 to 10% of what Linux actually can do. Same goes with Windows. Same goes with Mac OS. Just using it will give you something, but you are not sitting down and dedicating your time to learn. You're just using. You are a user. You are a consumer. A few of you out there are actually, I'm using Windows or Mac OS. I want to learn about their respective kernels. Almost nobody's doing that. The same with Linux. They know that Linux is the kernel, but they don't look at shit like this. They don't try and download the source code and compile it and modifying it and installing it. They probably don't even know how to fucking make a dep file or RPM file to install it on. Just because you hear someone say something, don't make you a fucking expert. Because then I should be an expert in everything in life. I've heard people talk about everything almost. I should be a theoretic fisherman, or a psychiatrist, or a fucking counselor, or a master in every fucking aspect of life, because I've talked to people that talk about that shit. Most Linux users are no more or less than a user from any other system, because Linux is so accessible nowadays. Some will even say, and I will agree with that, it's more accessible than Windows and Mac OS. Like, if I should rate installation hardness of OSs, it would be Mac OS, Linux, Windows, FreeBSD, and blah blah blah, even with Arch Linux in there. Because if you can read, Arch Linux is not that fucking hard to install if you can read, and it's still faster than doing it the Arch way on Arch than dealing with Windows bullshit. All Linux users are normies until you understand what I just talked about. I just make you really angry, and if you get really angry and you still go into the comment section right now and yelling and screaming at me, you made my point. But if you got angry and you stop and realize that shit, I maybe need to learn something, and you start to learn, I've done my job. If just one of you guys or girls do that, I've done my job. I've got you interesting. I've opened your eyes to actually learn about the shit you're using, and not just being a blind sheep that are using things you don't understand. Because if you're a blind sheep that use things you don't understand, no matter what fucking OS you're on, it's an issue. Because then you can allow other people to manipulate you. And trust you me, the Free Software Foundation is manipulating the living shit out of people because they don't know what the Free Software Foundation really is about. It's a political movement. They don't give a fuck about all of this. They use all of this as a vessel. That's to the extent they care the same about as you do as a car, the family car. They're just using this as a vessel. For some fucking reason, they think this is the best way of pushing a political agenda instead of going into politics. And if you can't see that Richard Stallman blatantly is saying when he's doing conferences that this is not a fucking tech talk, I'm a political person, a political activist. If you can't correlate those two things with each other, you may need to get your IQ checked. Just putting it out there. Or at least you need to go back to school and learn some shit. Maybe you've had bad teachers. That could also be a thing. I hope that's the case. And I definitely understand it in the States, because goddamn it, the educational level of Americans are like 5th graders in Denmark can run corners with fucking, the education system in America. Most European countries can do that, by the way. But that's a talk for another time, or another video maybe, about how the American educational system has been just ruined by politics and ideologues and things that really don't matter until you become an adult. And that's why a lot of people, just a short little rant here, you see a lot of people right now with fucking degrees they can't use in the working life because they feel good degrees, And it's sad. Like, I'm not saying this to be, I feel for you guys and girls over there. It's sad because you do something and spend a lot of money on something that you were like, hopefully I can get a great job, and then you're like flipping burgers at McDonald's with a PhD in whatever fucking art or something like that there's maybe 10 jobs in the fucking state that you were in that deal with that, but they popped out like 1,000 art PhD masters or whatever the fuck it is. I feel for you guys and girls. Sad enough, a lot of those people are the same people that think that Linux makes them fucking superior. Understand the fucking world, okay? See you all later. Bye bye.